Hello, Buckeye fans, and welcome to, I guess, an emergency episode. Emergency makes it sound bad. I don't know if that's the right word. A surprise episode of the Bucknuts Morning Five. No happy hour today. We're not going that long. But if you missed it, news from Ohio State today. Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith announces he will retire effective the end of June 2024, so next summer. Steve, I went into that press conference thinking we were going to talk about realignment and Oregon and Washington.
We
did
did
talk
for a
about that a
little
little
bit.
bit, but
Yeah.
you've covered Gene his entire tenure. Funny when you asked a question, hey Steve, and you said you remembered his introductory press conference. Your reaction initially to this when he made the announcement that he was going to step down?
Yeah, I still have the copy of Bucknuts the magazine from the summer of 2000 or the spring of 2005 when he was selected to be the successor to Andy Geiger. And Andy Geiger had built up the Schottenstein Center and they'd renovated Ohio Stadium and they'd done so many things under his watch. And you wondered, well, what was next for Gene Smith? And obviously there have been a tremendous amount of upgrades and different things that have happened here at Ohio State over the last, it's going to be 19 full years by the time he retires in a year from now, in July of 2024. And he's overseen just a lot of transformations and different things. It hasn't been without controversy. I mean, he got the job on the heels of the Troy Smith added benefits situation that happened there in late 2004. Karen Holbrook, the president, was looking for somebody to take the fall for all of that. Andy Geiger graciously did that and kind of rode off into the sunset. And Gene Smith took over from there. But obviously, the end of the Jim Tressel regime in 2011, May of 2011, that finally caught up with Jim Tressel, and he was drummed out after the Tatgate situation.
Right.
And he had the Urban Meyer and Zach Smith situation in 2018. Urban stepped away from football at the end of the 2018 season, citing some health issues, but you also just wonder the way that whole situation was handled from start to finish. Not to blame Gene Smith or anybody, but just Urban's treatment by the university wasn't, what a lot of people thought it should have been. And Gene was put in a position of having to find somebody to replace Urban Meyer, and he turned right there and saw Ryan Day, who stood in for him for 3 games earlier in that 2018 season and made the pick. And Day's been pretty much a home run. I mean, 3 playoff appearances in 4 years and a couple of Big Ten championships in 4 years. And now going into this season as the number 4 team in the country, right in the hunt, you would think, to get right back there and do all that again this year. So if not contend or win the national championship this year, if everything falls into place. And Ryan Day had a little bit of an update in that regard after the Gene Smith information. But you just think about all the programs that were built up, all the winning that was done across the board at Ohio State. I think second in the Directors' Cup this year. Third in the Directors' Cup.
First in Big Ten.
They had their best APR rating, he said, this year. Just how many people's lives have been touched. Everything that's happened here at Ohio State, upgrades across the board, every way that you could possibly look at it. They're making money hand over fist with licensing and everything. And I know some of that rubs people the wrong way when you talk about ticket revenue and parking and everything else. But, they turned a $20 million profit on the heels of losing $60 million over the COVID episode, which, who could have foreseen that?
Right.
But, I would grade him an A-, B+ athletic director. I don't think that there's a whole heck of a lot more that could have happened on his watch. I mean, they could have won a couple more football national championships, and the basketball program could be a perennial, Final Four contender. But, we're picking nits at that point. Ohio State's never had all that, so to where they're in the national championship hunt most years. So I think it's been a pretty successful run for Gene Smith.
Absolutely, and you mentioned basketball, but in the press release, it listed kind of the Big Ten championships other sports have won, national championships other sports have won. When he was asked about his most proud moments, he mentioned the national championship in football, but he also talked about men's volleyball and wrestling and things like that.
Yeah.
You're overseeing the biggest athletic department in the country, and we probably don't give him enough credit for that, but he's sustained something that no one else in the country is doing in terms of the size. Can you kind of put into perspective what that means, having covered some of those other sports that maybe we don't talk about enough?
Yeah, it takes a lot of money, obviously, to be able to uh, to sustain 36 athletic sports at a university like Ohio State. And they've been outstanding with fundraising in that regard. They have done everything that they can. Really, as he said, to give, he didn't think when he got here that Ohio State was necessarily preparing athletes across the board for success after college, perhaps like they could have, and they've put a lot of things in place. We asked him. I asked him. He once said he didn't want to be part of a model where the athletes were um, paid employees.
Right.
That he wanted to get out before that happened, and it is kind of moving in that direction. When you talk about the amount of money in television that the Big Ten is going to generate, there's no reason why that money isn't trickling down directly to the student athletes who are putting on the show. They deserve that money. But Gene also said that they have a sign outside the meeting room, the circle or whatever it is. There's 9 areas where they provide support away from football for the athletes in terms of nutrition, psychological, academic, everything else that goes into this. And Nick Saban made the comment a few years ago that they invest $400,000 a year per player. 100 players times 400,000 is about $40 million, and it sounds about right for what a football program like this one, maybe even more in the last couple of years. He says everything seems to go up 5% a year. So to me, to be able to sustain all these programs, provide all that support for all their student athletes, I think you've got to just tip your hat to what they've been able to do. And, I think it kind of speaks for itself. The success that they've had, in providing that support has led to success on the field across all of these sports. I mean, women's basketball is at the highest point it's been probably back to Katie Smith playing in the national championship game in 1993. And, that's just one example. As you said, so many others and so many others that are on the rise, like baseball is getting a fresh start, and so many other programs here that are going to move in that direction because of the things he's put in place.
Ryan Day talked about the need for an athletic director that he can connect with. He had that with Gene, who obviously played football at Notre Dame, so he understands football. I assume if you talk to Chris Holtman or any of the other coaches, they would look for that too. I imagine there's already some thought being put into who is going to be the next athletic director. I don't know if you have names you want to throw out.
Well, there's a few that I think about, and I asked Ryan Day point blank at the end of the press conference, and you can see it. It'll be up on the website here just momentarily. I said, do you want to be involved in the employment process? Not only the athletic director, but this place needs a university president.
Yep.
They're churning them through here every 3 or 4 years, Drake and Christina Johnson. Does anybody want this job? And that's a big question considering some of the crap that's happened here with, you figure you've had some good people in that position and kind of run them out on a rail for whatever reason. But that's just my little side view. But I asked him, does he want to be involved? He said, no, we've got board of trustees that is very qualified and they'll take care of that. They'll handle that. And he says, my job is to coach this football team.
Right.
And at the same time, though, he's in a $10 million a year job, and he's got a lot of sway here in the direction of this university and can really kind of, take the bull by the horns. He'll want somebody that he can work with. He and Gene had a great rapport. Gene gave him the shot of a lifetime in 2018, late 2018, to take over as the head coach. The names I think about, Diana Sabo just yesterday took the athletic director job at Utah State after being an assistant commissioner, the right-hand person to the commissioner in the Big Ten office in Chicago. She probably knew something was coming down with Gene. Maybe she'll do that for a year and then be selected to come here and be the first female athletic director at Ohio State. A couple of others, Martin Jamond is at UCLA. He was a right-hand guy for Gene here for a while, went to Boston College, hired Hafley there, then went to UCLA working with Chip Kelly, who's also a Ryan Day guy. out there at UCLA. Maybe that's a seamless transition. Pat Chun goes back a ways. He's at Washington State, and they're being orphaned out there with the Pac-12 kind of going away. Pat Chun's going to be looking to jump off of that ship. And if he has any support back here in Columbus, he's been gone over a decade. We'll see. But those are three names I think of right away. And to be honest, you need somebody. I wouldn't say you need the Texas AD or the Alabama AD or the Georgia AD, but you need somebody who is football related and also broad based, because this thing is experience. 36 sports. You don't want somebody having their first AD job necessarily being here at Ohio State, and it wasn't that way really for Andy Geiger or Gene Smith the last two. It was for Jim Jones, who just kind of took over when Rick Bay left there in '87. But Jones had been here forever. I don't know if there's anybody on staff who is necessarily number one, number two in line behind Gene to take it over. It would have been Diana a few years ago, but she went to the Big Ten. So yeah, we'll see.
All right. You've got a wife's birthday lunch to get to. You get out of here. I'm going to talk about
football.
The team.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for jumping on.
Happy birthday, Amy.
Yep.
I'm coming to lunch right now.
All right. Thanks, Steve. He's hurrying out of here. Transitioning over to what we heard from Ryan Day today, and I'll just kind of hit some quick hitters on this, and then we'll get out of here. But the biggest news I thought coming out of the Ryan Day press conference, which, as Steve mentioned, the video will be up on Bucknuts here shortly. The tackle position, something we've talked about a lot, both on our site, on the BM5, on the Happy Hour. Ryan Day said that they are moving some guys around there, which is interesting because I think most people would have told you Josh Fryer seems pretty entrenched as the left tackle. He said actually as much. I wrote about this earlier this offseason that he believes he's the starting left tackle, even though the coaches hadn't anointed him as such. And then the competition at right tackle was Zen Mikowski, who was the guy we saw taking first-team reps when we were out there for the first day of practice, Tegra Shabola, and then transfer Josh Simmons, or Jimmy Simmons, as he apparently prefers to be called. We'll go with Jimmy Simmons here from going forward, since there's so many Joshes in this competition, including Josh Fryer, the offensive line coach. But that has changed, it seems. Ryan Day said they are moving guys around, so Josh Fryer, not necessarily the guy as the left tackle. He's going to play a little bit of right tackle some practice. And then Ryan Day's also thrown into the mix Luke Montgomery, the freshman from Ohio, highly recruited guy, but as many of you know, offensive line, not a position that often has guys step in as true freshmen and play right away, start right away. I'd have to go back and double check it, but it might have been Michael Jordan, the last true freshman to start, at least at the tackle position. I'd have to check that, but just off the top of my head, maybe there's been others since then. But Ryan Day was asked about, does moving Josh Fryer, moving him around more mean that you are more confident in Luke Montgomery as potentially the starting left tackle here as a true freshman, which would be quite the accomplishment. And you can then move Josh over to right, and maybe that cements things a little bit better. Plus, you can look forward a little bit and see, okay, then now we have a left tackle in Luke Montgomery for years. And Ryan Day wasn't quite ready to say that. He did say they really like what Josh Simmons has brought to the team. Remember, he was not involved in spring practice. He was here in the summer after transferring from San Diego State. Now, when we were out there for practice, we haven't been back out since the first day. Josh Simmons, again, it was the first day, but he was taking second, third team reps behind Zen Mikowski and Tegra Shabola. Ryan Day also said Tegra's done some good things and that there's been a lot of competition in that room. He was then asked if I think Steve asked him, the group around the quarterbacks, meaning that offensive line, if they're getting what they need from that, and he said yes. In a similar vein, Ohio State will have its first scrimmage of fall camp on Saturday, which is going to be big for the offensive linemen. And Ryan Day said that he believes coming out of that, he will have more answers when it comes to not just the offensive line, but specifically the offensive line. So we might have some more concrete thoughts from the head coach and the way that offensive line is shaping up better next week. The quarterback position, Ryan Day was asked at the end of the press conference if he thinks next week he would be able to name, or he would like to be able to name, a starting quarterback. he kind of took his time to answer that question and said, he thinks he'll have a better idea. He did say it's a big week for both Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. Bye, Steve. Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, not only the scrimmage, but you're just kind of getting into that second week. This was the first day of pads, so you're starting to kind of see some real football. Those guys are going to have to, get into as much game-like situations as possible, which is what Ryan Day said from the beginning. It's just so hard to evaluate guys when you're not playing actual football. You're getting closer now with pads going on. The Buckeyes didn't tackle to the ground completely today, so you're still kind of feeling things out when it comes to those quarterbacks. Ryan Day said both guys have done some good things. It's kind of the what we've heard about these quarterbacks, what we've seen from these quarterbacks throughout this whole offseason. There hasn't been that level of separation, at least what they're saying, what we've seen. So I think the scrimmage will be big in terms of that. I don't know if you'll get a starting quarterback named next week, but I do think you're getting closer to something coming. Flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, I asked Ryan Day about the safety position and kind of that group of Jihad Carter, Sonny Styles, and Lathan Ransom that we've seen working together that, in my mind, seems to make sense to be either the starting group or a group that plays quite a bit because of their versatility. And Ryan Day talked about the versatility and mentioned Cam Martinez had a really good day today. And then he mentioned, I thought this was really interesting, Cody Simon, who's a linebacker, and Jordan Hancock, who is one of the three guys who I think is in the mix to start at cornerback, in with that group. So I don't know if Cody Simon is getting some work at kind of that nickel position when they go to heavier sets in order to just be ready for some of those teams like a Wisconsin that you may face, though we don't know what Wisconsin's going to look like under the fickle, but some of those guys that line up in heavier sets. And then Jordan Hancock is being tried out as the nickel if Denzel Burke and Davis Enigbenosun have kind of established themselves as the 1-2 at corner. But I thought it was interesting that he put those names in there. He did say he likes what he's getting from the secondary, which I think is a positive for the Buckeyes. Jim Knowles, Perry Eliano, the safeties coach, have indicated that as well. Perry Eliano said just yesterday, and I wrote about this on Bucknuts, we're going to be better than we were last year, when referring specifically to safeties with the secondary as a whole. And I think you expect that in year two with a lot of these guys in the Jim Knowles defense. So that was a lot of what Ryan Day said. You can go back and watch that video. Again, it'll be on Bucknuts and on our YouTube page. If it's probably already up, Steve probably already has it uploaded. We want to do a quick podcast here. We may do more of these as things come out throughout throughout the rest of fall camp and into the season here at the WAC. But we figured today was a good one with the Gene Smith surprising news coming out, and then some good stuff from Ryan Day that I wanted to recap as well. So stay tuned to Bucknuts. We'll have plenty of stuff still going up on Gene Smith, on stuff from today. Thank you all for tuning in the middle of your, Wednesday. And we'll talk to you soon, Bucknutters. Cheers.